marketing director for University Village, Thousand Oaks. And I'm not going to do a sales pitch, so please relax. But with that said, this is being filmed, and so when you raise your hand to the next question, we'll know who all the guests are. And so, how many guests do we have here? Great. And current residents? Awesome. Some of the residents were also guests. I noticed that. You can't fool me. Anyway, we are so happy to have you here today. I know some of you had to drive in, use valet. Others, because of your circumstances, you could just walk right in. And that's also a pleasure too. But keep this in mind. We're here today because University Village values the relationship with New West Symphony. And we can't think of a better way to celebrate the arts than having Meet the Artists on our campus. So we're very happy that you're here. There's only one thing better that you can do, and that is be at the concert. And to those that don't have tickets, I was told by Holly Butler, our enrichment director, that she has tickets for purchase, just to let you know. And so you can see her after our meeting today to assure yourselves of actually seeing quality music through the weekend. And so I don't know how long we'll continue to host the New West Symphony. My wishes would be forever. And so we're going to continue that. What I observed, I've been here 20 years. Okay, I'm not a resident, but I've been here 20 years. What I have observed of the relationship is that it keeps on getting stronger. Keeps on getting stronger. Over the last 2 years, however, we have had probably about 90 of our apartment homes and villas change hands. Wow. Right? We're living in a continuing care retirement community. People move in, and then people move out. However, we have some education to do and, with our new residents who aren't acquainted with this wonderful product that we have right in our backyard. And so I hope you take this opportunity, new residents, to really get to know this organization. Because it is classy, it's sassy, and it's talented. So without further ado, I'm going to bring out Michael Christie, leader of this wonderful organization.
Good afternoon, friends. It's so wonderful to be with you again. It's only been about 3 or 4 weeks since our last time. So we're continuing, as I mentioned before. Now we're basically doing one concert program per month for, until April, which is amazing. So we'll be seeing a lot of each other. I'm very, very pleased to be joined by pianist Lara Downes, photo historian, author, producer, creator, ... Just doing so many wonderful things, Joseph Sohm. So our program this week is not titled Americana, but it is not loosely affiliated, strongly connected to the theme of Americana. I had no idea, well, I had an idea, of course, that the election was going to be happening the week after the concert, but I had no idea the kind of strife that would be involved in the election process. And so I think this program hopefully is even more of a salve to all of us, because I never would have ever considered making it partisan in any way, and this one is definitely not partisan in any way. It is, I think, a true reflection of the beauty of these 50 magnificent states, its national monuments, its cultural heritage, And this program was designed to give us, or orient us and anchor us back into not this ethereal battles that are going on for power, but the thing that is always going to endure past all of these personalities, which is our land, and then the traditions that we pass along. So we open the concert with 3 spirituals for symphony orchestra, written by a composer named Adolphus Hailstork, still living. Huge output. This gentleman has written a tremendous amount of music, and the Naxos label is a label that there has been a big effort to record his music. So if you're ever interested in hearing just almost like a modern incarnation of Aaron Copland, get on Spotify or wherever you listen to your music and look up Mr. Hailstork. It's really a tremendous output, and it's a great way for us to start the concert. It just has that call and response quality that you can imagine people singing spirituals have, and I think that will certainly set the mood for the concert. And there's a very special moment in the second of the 3 movements. They're short, they're only a couple minutes each, but I've asked the English horn player and the clarinet player, who would normally be way back in the orchestra, to stand in the front of the stage for these big solos that they have. They're playing the melody Kumbaya. And I thought it would just be so lovely to have this interaction unfold before you as the audience members. So I hope you enjoy that. They're going to come out from their seats after the first movement, and then once they've played. But yeah, I think it's special. You know, orchestras are amazing because you do get all of these fantastic colors, and you have all these solos that happen. But the more I've been doing this, now 30 years, the more I recognize that our style of presenting is really based on everybody just staying very static. And you know, you sit, the orchestra sits, we're all just sitting. and I just think, well, maybe we need to actually bring some of those people out to the front, because you know that's the way we connect more specifically with those instruments. So I hope you'll enjoy that as well. So I want to get to our guests. Pianist Lara Downes was with us during COVID at the end of our series called Global Sounds, Local Cultures. And the last of that series was the American Melting Pot. And so Lara was here. She not only played music of Florence Price with the orchestra, Eubie Blake, and we'll talk a little bit more about Eubie Blake in a moment, but she also did some solo piano and collaborative piano with a wonderful tenor named Ashley Fatolia, somebody actually we've had here a couple of times, who's an LA-based tenor. And it was really wonderful, and we have been speaking since then about what the return would be and what she would play. And we have created a kind of a suite of music of different styles that all are reflective of not only American music past, but very much American music right now, which I think is very exciting. So Lara, welcome. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can dive into the program a bit.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. It's a beautiful program, and you're just so great at programming. And I think that, you know, my favorite thing about music in general, and especially American music, is, as you said, all the places that it connects us. So important. It always has. It always will. It cuts through, you know, whatever divisions are happening in any given moment, which I think is kind of always. And you know, I love sort of looking at the cycles of our history through music. So what all is on this program that I'm involved in? Eubie Blake. Oh, you wanted me to talk about myself? Okay, I can do that. I grew up in San Francisco, and then actually lived abroad for quite a while with my family. I'm one of 3 girls, and we're all musicians. Terrible idea. Came back here, was in New York for a while, and then made my way back out west. And I have a busy musical life. I'm on the road pretty much all the time, and I love that, except for the part that's sitting, you know, on the airplane. But you got to do that to get anywhere. I make a lot of recordings. I have a new album that just came out that's called This Land, which is another exploration of American history through music. I do a lot of writing and producing and curating of concerts. And I also, if any of you listen to KUSC in the evenings, I'm the voice on your radio because I'm the resident artist of KUSC in LA and KDFC in San Francisco. So I do everything, I do a lot of everything except sleep. And it's really, I mean, the best thing about this life is moving around and working with colleagues and the group of musicians that is an orchestra, you know, just where we are all in this life and this business because we love it so much. And it's especially wonderful for me, I have to say, when I come in, you know, it's great if you go and you play Chopin with an orchestra, we all love that music, but to come in and sort of explore something new together and discover something new together and express it and share it, it's really just a spectacular feeling of community, and I love that.
So we're opening with a piece that we did during the COVID lockdown. It was a work by Eubie Blake, who was just one of a legendary jazz pianist in the United States. Maybe give us a little reflection on just what he would have brought to the pianistic world of American culture.
Well, I mean, the pianistic world, but actually my Eubie Blake point of reference is the show Shuffle Along. The first Broadway show, the first successful Broadway show with an all-black cast, which opened in 1921. And Langston Hughes calls that the start of the Harlem Renaissance. So he was really at the center of this moment of shift in America that had to do with migration and just, you know, cultural change and kind of the launch of the Great American Songbook, too. And the reason that I fell in love with this song, which we have arranged for piano and orchestra in a beautiful arrangement, it's called Love Will Find a Way, and it's from Shuffle Along. And if you were to find an old phonograph recording of the original show, you would not recognize what we're doing, because it was kind of just like an up-tempo, scratchy number. But when I hear it, I feel like it is this mist pearl of the Great American Songbook. It's gorgeous, and to add all the strings and everything, it's just lush and beautiful.
So before we go on to the rest of the program, Lara leads this KUSC program 5 nights a week, which I think is amazing. So what I want to know about this effort, which must be tremendous, is we were talking a little bit at lunch that you pre-record parts of it, you work with a team at KUSC to establish what the playlist is going to be, etc. And then you send all the files, so I'm assuming you have a microphone set up and all the computer software that you know is going to be exactly to the specifications that they want.
I have fancy stuff. I have fancy stuff that I take with me on the road, and I have fancy stuff at home. And I will tell you that how this happened, this is not something I ever planned to do. But in 2020, when all of my concerts were canceled and I was sitting at home, they called me from KDFC and said, we've been watching what you do, you know, this voice that you have, this presence you have for the future of music. Would you ever think about doing a radio project? And my mouth said, before my brain thought, I said, sure, because when I grow up, I want to be Leonard Bernstein. Meaning that he took that platform of media and he changed America, you know, through everything that he did on TV and radio. And for me, that is fascinating because when we are in a concert hall, we're only ever there with who's in the concert hall. And so for me, it's just such a huge platform to educate and inform and invite, and I love it. And it's worth the, I was telling them at lunch, I get up really early and I do my radio show, and then I go to the gym, and then I go about the rest of my day, and then by evening it is magically produced into this beautiful thing. And of course I don't listen, right? Because at night I'm playing a concert or I'm doing something else. But last week I was in LA and I was driving home from dinner. My friend was driving me home, and I was on the radio, and it's very weird to hear your own voice on the radio, especially in the car. There's even in the car, you're like, oh, it's real. That's really me. Yeah.
So are you in a team deciding on the topics? Because I cannot imagine. So it's 5 nights a week times how many weeks per year?
Well, how many weeks are there?
No, but do they expect you to do 52 weeks of?
Yeah, it's all the time. Oh, wow. It's all the time.
Really?
And I have to say, I really am
National
deeply,
holidays and everything.
Yeah, and the worst part is the holidays in December because the staff gets, as they should, a holiday, which means that we have to pre-tape, I think, like 2 weeks in advance. You can imagine what that's like, so you're welcome. But I have such appreciation for my colleagues there who really, you know, when I came into this, I said, I want to do this if I can do what I believe in. You know, if we can be intentional and broad and share discovery, meaning like, sorry, no offense, but I don't want you to fill up my show with hide, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of energy to broaden, you know, what gets played, and to make connections, and kind of, you know, I kind of need this to be in alignment with everything else that I do in the world. And I think the programming is really fantastic.
Well, it couldn't be unaligned, right? Because the amount of time it would be required to kind of jerry-rig a program that doesn't resonate with you would be too much cognitive dissonance, I think. So I'm wondering if you might give us, maybe play a little bit for us. Would that be an interesting thing to do? I'm sure we'd love to hear a little bit of music.
Okay, so I'm going to play for you. Is it fair to say that Dvořák is at the heart of this program this weekend? You know, I'm always focused on American music, and I have to keep reminding myself that Dvořák is not technically American, because that symphony is the most American piece that we have. But one of my favorite stories about Dvořák is his connection with an American musician named H.T. Burleigh, when Dvořák came to America to lead our first national conservatory. Well, maybe I'll play the music first, and then we can tell the story. Okay.
We're all watching her put her Bluetooth pedals to change the pages so while she's doing that, Joe, do you mind just doing a little biographical, and then we will, after she's played, we'll come back and circle into your artistic contribution to the concert.
I think she may.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right.
My biography's too long for that.
Okay.
We'll talk a little tiny bit about Dvořák.
Okay, all right, so that's good. So Joe, I think what's so lovely about the New World Symphony is we have a Czech composer who has heard about so much of America, has come to America, but like most musicians, is engaged to come to America as the head of a new conservatory in New York City. And I think that your idea of this kind of bird's eye view of America in so many ways is reflective, at least the way I feel it, as Dvořák's bird's eye view of American music, and kind of trying to not necessarily replicate the exact folk songs, but the style and the spirit of it. And I have to imagine with your, you started off with stills, but now this whole recreation of your output through drone moving photography, that bird's eye view. What is your takeaway about what America is when you start looking at it from several hundred feet above? What's the look and feel?
Well, higher is better. And before I was flying drones, I had a photo agent, and he said, whatever you do, just get higher. Get on a rooftop, get on a building top, get on a mountaintop. And so I've spent most of my career as an image maker looking how to get up, and in the morning too. And so when I discovered the drone recently, I had been renting airplanes, renting helicopters. They're pretty pricey. And also they're hard to control because they move so fast, and I'm not flying them. So, but with the drone, that became another opportunity. And so consequently, I've always been kind of a topic sentence guy. I'm less interested in all the details. I just want to know the topic sentences. I'm perfect for the 21st century. So consequently, what attracted me to the United States and America was less those words and more the word New World. So Dvořák had me with the title. from the New World. But I'm a little dyslexic possibly, because I never saw the word as two words, New World. I saw it as one word, New World. And that's why when you see it on the screen, you will see it typed without a W. But the reason I say that is looking down is how I see the world. And it's not looking down on people. I'm not looking down on any of you. But it's the idea of breaking through the clouds by not being clear about what you're seeing, going a little bit deeper. Oh, maybe there's some forests over there. Going a little bit deeper. There's some lakes over there, you know, and then voila, here is a whole continent that was, I won't say uninhabited because it was inhabited by Native Americans, but it was a landscape that had not been built upon. So consequently, when we get to the concert that we're working together on, it's really diminishing to an augmenting process of nothing. Then there were people, then now there are animals, there's small towns, there's big cities, and there's also industrial problems, and there's solutions. So it kind of goes through layers. So that's a long story.
No, that's exactly right. And they're in chapters, I suppose, related to the movement. So the first movement is America, the place, as we go through, and America, the kind of the unadulterated America, which I think is landscape America.
Yeah, the icon that I used was the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill, which was actually added to the dollar bill during the New Deal and Franklin Roosevelt and the Vice President, Henry Wallace. And that pyramid has always attracted me. So I saw every brick in that dollar bill pyramid as an image of America. And when you put them all together, you have the New World.
All right. Let's chat up. Let's hear a little bit, and then we'll come back to Dvořák and his influences. What a neat piece that is.
Yeah.
And so interesting how, like Dvořák, it's definitely has a structure of European tradition, and then it's got this extra bit. It like has a couple of minutes that, or moments that harken back to Brahms, and then there you suddenly get this little festive dance. It's I can only imagine when Dvořák would have heard that, it probably would have connected with him pretty directly.
Totally. And that suite is called From the Southland. Burle was born in the north, never went down south. He had ancestors, who had come out of the south. And so, when you were talking about perspective, I think that's this kind of nostalgic perspective on ancestry and history. And Dvořák met Burle in New York City, where Burle was working as a composer, but mostly as a vocalist. He had this beautiful baritone voice, and he was active at both the fanciest Episcopalian church and also the fanciest temple. So everybody knew him, and he was really the one who introduced Dvořák to the music of African American spirituals, which then Dvořák, of course, fell in love with, championed, and really advocated for making an American music based on our native sources. So it's a really pivotal moment in like European and American music coming together.
And then there are all these other pivotal moments that happen after that, as you mentioned, Eubie Blake with Shuffle Along, kind of this other pivot where culturally we're able to kind of proudly stand on a cultural pedestal that isn't just the normal European white culture. And it's like this just exciting turning point that starts happening as we head into the Harlem Renaissance. And then I think about, of course, before, I guess Eubie Blake and Joplin would have crossed age-wise or time period-wise, but you have Scott Joplin coming from a completely different upbringing, and we're going to be playing two of Scott Joplin's rags on this program, kind of as a printed encore, so to speak. But take us into Missouri and to the South, and this incredible artist, Scott Joplin, taught by a German piano teacher, and then suddenly through World's Fair, etc., he becomes Scott Joplin.
I mean, it's just another crazy American story. It says Texarkana, Texas, the late 1860s, and Joplin is growing up in this sort of outlaw lumber town, and there arrives this German Jewish immigrant who's there as the tutor of this lumberman's family, and this little black boy who's playing the pianos in the parlors of the houses that his mom cleans, connects with this gentleman and starts learning classical music. That was his foundation. You said earlier about just how this music cuts through everything that's not great. And I mean, I think that this is how we illustrate that. I just feel like throughout our history, Americans have met each other in the strangest of ways, and they listened to each other. At least in music, they've always listened to each other, and they've shared, and then the music blends and it evolves, and it's such an important lesson for everything else that we do. So Joplin's musical foundation was based on classical music. What he wanted was to become the first great composer of Black American operas, which was nuts because we didn't even have American operas at all back then. But his life was really centered on that, and actually, it sort of ended tragically because he really invested all of his energies and efforts and money and everything into that dream. But on the other hand, he became he was called the King of Ragtime, which was this whole new sound in America and took the country by storm.
So what is it about that style that is particular? Is it the stride? I mean, what is it?
Well, my friend John McWhorter, who writes for the New York Times and knows a lot about music, says this thing which is possibly exaggerated, that it was ragtime was the first time that anyone had heard a syncopated beat. So he does this bit about Abraham Lincoln, tapping his foot on the beat, but now the beat is, now you're tapping off the beat and everything changes. But it was, like every new innovation in American music, it was thought of as the devil's music, and people were going crazy to it. But it really did lead the way directly into jazz and pop and rock and everything that defined the 20th century.
I love how the composers, Eubie Blake, Scott Joplin, a lot of their launches happened via these big World's Fairs, etc., where people would come and you would go to a Chicago or you'd go to a Paris, and there was this melting pot where people who were writing the Debussys of the world, the Ravels of the world, that were suddenly introduced to the music of India. And I can only imagine people, for example, but all those connections were made, but I can only imagine what would have happened at, say, the Chicago Fair, it was the 1890s, when all these people would have come, and then, of course, they would have just suddenly heard this different thing, kind of like we watch YouTube now, right? And I can't imagine what a fertile, imaginative moment that must have been. And I do wonder if you have perspective on the people that you've researched about the kind of the cross-pollination of composers from different worlds, eras, genres, kind of mixing and creating this new blend.
I guess what I always think about is how fast everything happened, how fast the 20th century was, right? Because this was the 19-teens. So yes, it was the Chicago World's Fair, and that was, I think, at the end of the 1890s. And it was like 2 million people who came through that fair, and literally they heard this music as they walked in, because it was all the saloons on the periphery of the fair, where you were hearing this music. And then in an instant, because publishing is also new, now you have nice ladies from all over the country who are ordering this music so they can play it on the piano in their parlors. And then ragtime's kind of over in the blink of an eye. Now there's jazz because there's all these people migrating north from the deep south, and just so fast. And there's something to me very significant. I mean, everything was speeding up, right? Transportation was speeding up. Technology was just changing everything, and music became part of that. So I think you're right. And then in the 1920s, of course, we have all these European composers coming here and falling in love with the sound of jazz, and then that transforms their music, like Ravel, like Stravinsky. But it was also quick.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing because now we're in this era of also rapid fire change because of the new technology and all of our phones, etc. And so now we have Jessie Montgomery, the third of the composers featured in our little piano suite. The piece that we're going to be playing of Jessie's is a piece called Rounds, and it is a very, very new piece. Like, the ink is still quite wet, so to speak. But earlier this year, she won the Grammy Award for the best new contemporary composition. And it's really tremendous because actually, for the orchestra, it's not that hard of a part, to be honest, but it's very repetitive and cyclical, so that you as listeners will be able to hear, you'll be able to kind of see where in the round, literally, where in the spin that we are. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, you were really a proponent of this piece, which we're very grateful for.
Yeah, well, I love Jessie, and for years I was asking her when she was going to write something for piano, but Jessie's a violinist, and I think she was terrified to try. But then she did, and look what happened, she won a Grammy. The last time I played this piece, we actually did it without a conductor. Not to fire you or anything, but it's such a great example of, like, it's really chamber music writing, I think, in this piece, and it's so well done. And yeah, it's just kind of mesmerizing, I think. It pulls you into these cycles. And I think Jessie, I mean, I don't know that necessarily in this piece that this aspect of her music is so clear, but yeah, she's somebody who grew up in New York City in the 80s, and her ears are used to a lot of different things filtering in, the sound of urban life and of change. And so she's really nimble and flexible in her writing style. And I'm so excited by the kind of writing that's happening in America right now, because it's very free. I think when we were growing up, there were all these distinctions. Well, either you're writing film music or you're writing concert music, and now people are just writing everything, and we're playing it everywhere, and it's really great. It's just a very energetic time.
So you have been a wonderful proponent of discovering music, particularly of women in the United States. And you have been part of just this unleashing of the treasure trove of undiscovered works. And I just wonder if you could give our audience maybe just a couple of pointers, like go find the music of this person, because it's just, it's revelatory, or whatever it is for you.
Yeah, it turns out that girls can write music. Amazing. Yeah, no, but I mean, joking aside, that's kind of how I felt. I always say that when I started piano lessons, by the time I was 4, those piano lessons took place in rooms that had portraits on the wall, and none of those portraits looked like me. So when I did find you know, the beginnings of what I know now about all the women who've written music. It was very exciting. And who, I mean, you can go all the way back, well, not all the way back, but you can go way back in American music. Figures like Amy Beach, who was the first woman to have her music played by a major American orchestra in Boston in 1890 something. Florence Price, same, a little bit later, but then she was the first African-American woman to have her music played by a major symphony orchestra. And I guess I feel like this music, I don't like to sort of insert my own bias or assumptions or anything, but I really do think that all art that's coming from a place of struggle has a certain quality to it. And when you are filled with creative energy and vision and ambition, and you're writing this music and no one is really asking you to, I think that comes through in the music. You know, there's just this need to express, this need to be part of the world in a big way.
Can you give us an example of any of the topics that are coming up that people should definitely tune in at KUSC?
Oh.
I mean, besides every night, of course, but you know, but in particular, are there anything that's coming in the nearest future?
You know, sometimes I meet people and they say, I listen to your show every single night. And I'm like, did you know about Netflix? Like, there's other things to do. But I mentioned, and I think they're actually playing it now on Saturdays, Saturday afternoons. I started a new show called Classical Americana, which is nationally syndicated, and it's really looking into everything that we're talking about now. It's how American concert music connects with the rest of classical music and also with the rest of American music. I call it the American Crossroads. So yeah, tomorrow I know that there's a show at 5, and that's every week, and we just are in production for season 2. And it's really fun. I learn a lot, and just a lot of stories that are surprising, not only about American music, but I think about American history and American life.
And Joe, speaking of, you were a history teacher, right? American history, and then you pivoted to photography.
I never felt comfortable in the classroom. I felt more comfortable reading books about the founding generation of America. That's what kind of turned me on. So American history has always been part of my viewpoint and my interest. So I really only have 3 primary interests in my career. One is taking photographs, images, whatever form they're in. Number 2, American history. And number 3, I used to work in nightclubs as a bass player. So when I had hair. And the combination of imagery, music, and storytelling, particularly what I share with next to me, Lara, is that combining the 3 gives you a unique kind of. I have a friend that made desserts. She had really good desserts, and she said a good dessert was never 1 or 2 elements. Those are the ones with too much sugar in and they overwhelm you. They have to have 3 things. So I always kind of viewed life as I need 3 things.
All right, so then any little tidbits about, for those who are going to be able to attend, any tidbits that people should look out for in particular with the visuals that will be with the orchestra?
Well, all the visuals were, everything my reputation has been based upon is as a still photographer. People used to stick video cameras in my hand and I'd go, ew, I don't do that. I just didn't understand motion, I only understood stills. And about 4 or 5 years ago, something went off in my head that actually drones were really cool. I should get one. I've since gotten 6 of them, and I've crashed 5 of them. So I've crashed in the Mississippi River, in the Pacific Ocean. I've crashed in oil fields. And most of these were never to be found again. So drones, I have an odd affair with. But what to look for really is how I morphed into the new Joe is that I started taking stills in 1,000 stills to create a time-lapse sequence. So it's basically about compressing time. So it would take maybe, if it were the Milky Way, it might take 4 hours to do 14 seconds. So it's a compression process. And And most of the time lapses I was doing was basically around 1,000 exposures compressed down to 15 seconds. And then that would make the clouds go through, the cars go through, and I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. And then if you put music to it, particularly, I was very much drawn to like Philip Glass-ish, kind of minimalist, because minimalist, I've already learned that as an image maker, minimalism, you know, at first I thought, oh, it's only 3 chords, they're just going back and forth, but the more I got comfortable with it, I went, oh, image-wise, you can almost put anything to this music and everything looks good. So I started to develop an affinity for that. So ultimately the time-lapse evolved into drones, and the drones also into slow-motion video. So what you're going to see is basically a combination of 3 things: stills, no stills, motion, drones, and slow-motion video, all set to music.
So we'll have a very special guest, so to speak, in the presence of William Shatner's voice. And you have a relationship with William Shatner such that he is now our narrator for this particular production, which I think is wonderful.
When I originally wanted to do The New World, which I don't, the technical name is From the New World, The New World in Joe's world, is that I kind of saw that there would be a script. I wrote the script, and it was in Philadelphia for the bicentennial of the United States Constitution. So I recorded Shatner in his prime, in his mid-50s. He's now, as you may know, he's 94, and he's the world's oldest living astronaut. So I recorded this narration, and for Philadelphia, for the bicentennial of the Constitution. It has not been performed ever since. So when I saw that New World was on the concert bill for the new West Symphony, Michael and I had a conversation. I said, well, I had this script that I wrote, and the whole script leverages Shatner's beautiful speaking voice, and this is actually the 4th production I've done with him over now 40 years. So he will be on tape, and we will be assimilating that into our concert with my images.
Yeah, it's a very exciting thing. So over the course of the performance of the symphony, so it's 42 minutes roughly, we do these chapters per movement. And so we'll be starting, as I mentioned before, with kind of landscape America, going to agrarian America, which then goes into urban America, mixed, and then I suppose there is America of the future, right? Because there's a little bit of the solar fields.
Yes, it
and some
evolves.
Other, right?
It evolves into hopefully a greener future.
Well, from your lips, right? We were going to have you play a rag. What would you like to play and why?
So speaking of the future, I will play for you the last rag that Joplin ever published at the sad end of his sad life. But what I love about it, it's called Magnetic Rag. And I feel like it's not sad at all. It's so much looking towards the future. No, but my favorite thing about that piece is the klezmer bit in the middle.
It's-
Like, what's this guy doing?
Oh, it is so cute, and not nearly it's just such a different feel, right? It's just such a different vibe. Any questions from the audience before we wrap it up? So this program, I think, is just going to be a really special thing. Again, kind of rooting us back into just the fundamentals of being here in this country, which I think we can all just take such huge pride and hopefully take ourselves out of the discourse at the moment. And next time we see you in a month's time, we'll be doing our Winter Spectacular program, which will be featuring Los Robles Children's Choir. And a very special thing that I think adults and children will really love. There is a movie called The Snowman, which was originated in England in 1982, and it's one of those pieces on BBC 4 that is played every Christmas Eve. It wasn't necessarily created as a Christmas movie, and actually the author said, I never thought of it as a Christmas story, but boy, they've done a really good job. And it's about a 20-minute film with kind of an older style of animation compared to the kind of the very, very Pixar, right? Exactly, that kind of style. It's a more pastel image, I think, as you go through with the orchestra. Some of our vocalists that are performing later in the program are going to serve as the narrators for that piece. It's really, really charming. In 20 minutes, it's only one part, but the subtitle of our Winter Spectacular concert is Holidays of Light. And so we're going to be playing some classical music that also reflects on light. So the Fire Symphony of Haydn, the Morning Mood from Peer Gynt of Grieg, a little bit of Eine kleine Nachtmusik of Mozart, Mozart's musical joke, and then of course some music of Hanukkah, and we have some Christmas music. So it's all these traditions all mixed together to hopefully give a great beginning to the holiday season. And then if you're interested, before that we've been doing a program called Winterfest, and that is it is a fundraiser for the orchestra, but what it is again on this idea of light. It is how different cultures around the world celebrate the December traditions, because virtually all of them originate from our observance and celebration of the solstice. And the fact that the December 25th being such a, from the Roman time, this incredible, completely unrelated to anything Christian, and then Christianity comes and takes over the 25th of December, but we see all these different ways that cultures from around the world noticed and were really fascinated by the darkest day of the year. So we'll have 10 different cultures and countries represented in the cuisine, in the table settings, in the music that happen on the same day before the concert, and then you could just move on into the concert that's called Winterfest. So a lot of great things coming up. It's hard to believe we're in November already, and I know I saw a pair of shoes for the Day of the Dead, which is fantastic. So there's a lot of interesting holidays coming up, and of course Thanksgiving. So I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, because the next time we'll see you will be post Thanksgiving. So I was just thinking, as I was listening to Lara play Scott Joplin, that maybe I want to give away a pair of tickets. Just that you can use for if you don't have tickets yet, or you want to take somebody to the symphony. We'll do one pair of tickets. And let me just ask Laura real quick. The first hand that I see up, who can identify Scott Joplin's most famous rag? Yes, please. Maple Leaf Rag. We will be playing that at the concert this weekend, but that is not the most popular one. Most popular.
So it was until something else happened years after Joplin's death that kind of superseded. Yeah, we're good.
The Entertainer. That's right. That's exactly it. All right. my colleague Natalia, as soon as I said I'm going to give away free tickets, her head goes up. So she's in the back corner of the room, and we'll make sure that we get your information so we can give you a pair of tickets for any of the concerts coming up. It'd be really great to have you or your friends. You have, what's that? I know you have tickets, but you probably want to bring a couple friends, right? Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm glad you can do that. All right, everybody. With that, I wish you a wonderful rest of this magnificent day. Thanks to University Village, as always, for being our hosts. And thanks to my colleagues, Joe Sohm and Lara Downes, for sharing their artistry. We'll see you at the concerts this weekend. Thank you very much.